Hello.
Hello, AOS fans!
It's the agents of Spitewood.
Yes, in this video we're going to be looking at the new Grand Alliance warbands for the new semi-season.
So GW announced a few weeks ago, it was quite a while ago now, I mean there's been holidays and everything since.
It's hot, so it's really hot here. We've noticed that Pete and I are shiny.
We are glistening because our makeup person's gone on holiday now.
Yes.
GW announced Spitewood and the new Grand Alliance boxes that are coming to give us another 16 warbands, although technically not 16 new warbands because there's a 13 and we'll get into that when we get to it. We thought, nobody's done this yet, so we figured we'd fill that gap as to looking at what might those warbands look like when they get into Emberguard.
Now, so you've already made a fatal mistake because you said nobody's done this yet, and by the time we've got this live, probably somebody would have done it.
Yeah, probably would.
But at the time of speaking, nobody's done this yet.
At 8:45 on Tuesday the 12th, yes. So we thought we'd have a look at all those warbands and see, well, we've got a load of other warbands and we can see how they've evolved from version 1 to version 2. What might these other warbands look like when they get ported across? And will GW keep everything the same, or do we think there's anything they might change?
Yes, because if there's one thing you viewers like, it's wild speculation. So that's what we were doing, we're speculating wildly, and who knows, maybe some of it will be accurate.
Now, as a little preamble to this, definitely noticed when going through all the old warbands from version 1 to look at the old cards versus the new stuff and all that, it really did highlight how many brilliant ideas there were in a lot of the warbands, but how absolutely hit and miss those could be.
So a hit would be like the Shadeborn, maybe?
Yeah, you look at their cards, they had some fantastic looking cards that really sort of all meshed together in this lovely idea of jumping out of the shadows and the gloom and all that kind of stuff.
And also they were like a new thing, which is always brilliant for
exactly.
Otherwise, one of the reasons we love it. And I suppose less good, I'm going to guess, I'd say the worm spat, thematic, but mostly shit.
Yeah, again, they had a really nice idea with that, like the shields reducing the damage and that kind of thing. It was just the cards sucked. Well, some of the power cards were fantastic, but a lot of the objectives were just dog because they had like a supremacy. Who has supremacy in a 3-5 warband?
Not exactly. And I've been looking over the warbands, and I know you have too. I've noticed the further you went towards the end of season 1, the more and more complicated things got. The more text there was on the cards, the more each fighter did something slightly different to the other fighter. They all had their own essay on inspire conditions and all that kind of thing.
Looking at you, Soulraid.
I exaggerate, obviously, but it was definitely a problem that the text was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, looking at you, Spinefin.
Yeah, and even things like the Null Spirit Pack and stuff like that. It was just like everybody did something different. Yeah. And then you've got other warbands like poor old Velmorn. It was like, they're all crap. Velmorn's got a little special rule about helping people. Other than that, they're all rubbish. And the more I look back overall, whilst I have a little bit of rose-tinted glasses over it, overall I think I am a lot happier with the way they've implemented war scrolls. It feels like you've got a defined space to fill, and so every warband gets something, and it's still not equal, it's never going to be, but it feels a lot more equal than the old version of the game.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, they all have a similar level of rules. You haven't got some cards that just got no text on them, like the early game.
You just pick up Velmor's, now it's just going to have LOL written on it.
Yeah. I'm interested to see whether GW can keep the consistency, because I would say that it hasn't been perfect, but the original 16 and the new warbands, and to a lesser extent the 13 that they reprinted, have been pretty consistent level of detail.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing that I've learned in a GW game, is the longer it goes on, the more complicated it gets. They have a little neat idea that they're just going to change this a little bit.
You'll get a war scroll, and then you'll have a specialist war scroll, and then you'll have a sub war scroll, and then you'll have an inspired war scroll.
And then it flips out. Yeah, it flips over.
So it comes over the top and a bit around the side.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that they don't do that. But their track record in nearly every game I've played is that things get more complicated the longer time goes on.
Yeah, if something works quite well, what GW are going to do is they're going to poke around in it.
So I've been on holiday for the last couple of weeks, so you've done most of the research for this, and I know that while you were doing it, you had some thoughts about the new card art versus the old card art. A huge bone of contention this time last year. Huge.
Yeah, there's definitely some cards that I look back on, some warbands, where I looked and I thought, that looks quite nice. I do miss the card art a bit for that, because it does look really nice. And then I look at the next warband, and obviously the artist they got in to do that was just like, I'm using 3 colours, and I don't care if they look right, and it looks rubbish. So you're just sitting there going, I've got this warband that I really like, and the card art sucks, and I've got this warband that's just not a warband I like, because it's an Order warband, and their card art looks amazing. And I don't like that. I think the photos help even the playing field a lot more. You know what you're getting. The pictures are there.
Yeah, I quite like the pictures. I think they're quite good. I also think it's quite nice. It gives them the option to have proper, really good art for the alternative art cards for when you win win things in tournaments. So I think that's really nice in the OP kits. So you've actually got, if they can really focus on getting really good quality, because they're not doing 360 cards or whatever it is in a season. They're just doing 10 or 15. So you get really good quality pictures, which is quite nice, I think, and gives you an extra little something for having the OP kit cards.
And one of the last things I noticed when looking through all the cards is, and again, this is a big complaint at the time, that losing the warband decks lost a lot of the flavour of the warbands, lost a lot of their character. But when you got down to the brass tacks of it, and you actually looked at the good cards, they were all kind of the same, unless they fit into a really specific theme for that warband, like your Headcrackers, or your Exiled Dead, or Shadeborn, or something like that. They were generally like, oh, this is a heal card, so that's a good one. This is a plus damage or a plus dice card, so that's a great one. This is a push card, exactly.
This is a push my opponent card. That's absolutely brilliant.
Exactly. So you definitely got specific types of cards. Now, they're all called something different, but overall, they all did the same kind of thing, and those were the good cards. And the ones which was like, if this fighter is in an edge hex and is not occupied by any other hex on the board, blah, 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 you can do this on one turn. If you, and like, it's rubbish, throwing that one away. So there were definitely cards in there where you could tell the design's like, let's have a card that does this.
Yeah, never using that.
No, exactly.
Never using that.
Definitely, that's been another thing that's really leaped out to me, that whilst we sometimes complain that, oh, we've only got so many decks and they've all got really similar cards in, like, you had similar cards anyway, they just had a different picture on them. And they were called something else.
And I have to say, this is a slight aside, as we often do, most people will know, I do kind of feel like I've really stuck in a rut with the decks, and I wonder whether it was faction cards. But I think actually it might just be a problem with lack of imagination on my part. I was reading that article, I don't know if you read it, a little shout out for Spent Glory. They did an interview or talked about the guy who won with, might have been with Moloch. It was a really interesting build on how he approached it. It was using
Realmstone
Raiders, and I thought, because I said at the time, I can't understand how this deck works, but somebody will make it work.
Yeah,
and it's and he did. I kind of feel like actually, if I feel the game's stuck in a rut, it's at least 50% of me problem.
Is it you stuck in the rut? Or is it...
exactly. So I need to try and think a little bit more out of the box going forward. Well, I'm not very good at that, so it'll probably go horribly, horribly wrong.
But I think some of that was just the fact that if you picked up a different warband, you picked up a different warband deck, you immediately got a load of different cards and the art themselves thrown in your face, and that made you just think of it a little differently. And maybe that's the problem that the current version has. You get the same cards every time, you get the same thought process every single time, it's just a different warband plugs in. Maybe it's then having to look at those warbands a bit more and say, okay, how does this warband's abilities work with the cards a bit more? That has definitely highlighted where there are maybe a few shortcomings on the V2 side, but also where there were a lot of shortcomings on the V1 side that a lot of people sort of insisted were intrinsic parts of the game. Actually, it's the same thing now, it's just a different colour.
So enough of this flim-flammery, let's dive in and look at the first box, which is Order!
Order! For each warband, we're going to follow a fairly standard format of, we'll talk about what their Inspire condition might look like, what the fight cards might look like now, what we think changes-wise they might want to put in, and obviously what their War Scrolls might look like and their War Scroll abilities.
So the box is going to be called the Seekers in Shadow.
Seekers in Shadow, which sounds quite like evil.
It does sound a bit, doesn't it? But they're seekers each other, they're looking for stuff.
That's true, yeah.
And
use a torch.
They should, as evidenced by the first warband in the box, which is the Truthseekers. So they are seeking for the truth in the shadows.
Yes, maybe they should try a library instead. I don't know. So, yeah, the Truthseekers, they're probably one of the more boring Order warbands out there, and probably one of the more boring Stormcast warbands out there. So, starts on a bit of a meh note for me.
True, they have got a bird. John Grant was a big fan of those. Over at John Grant Miniatures, he liked them, but they just didn't have the legs later in the game in season 1. So I'd be interested to see whether they have legs and wings to compete this time. But I think because they've got 3 fighters in the bird, they're not going to be like a heavy hitting Stormcast because we know they're flex.
We know they're flex, that's true. They're not all out aggro.
No, that's something to be taken into consideration when you look at the stats.
Yes, that is true, because they are all 4 wounds, and when you compare them to the Jaws of Itzel, they're all 5 wounds, so there's already a bit of a difference there.
They've got the Venomites on 1 and the Birds on 2.
Yeah, there is that.
So you're thinking maybe...
The Bird might be a little bit more of a useful fighter, because the Bird packs a little bit more punch than the Venomites.
Push the Bird up to 3 to give them the same amount of wounds as the Jaws of Itzel?
I probably would. I would probably move the Bird up 1 or something like that, but they're not spectacular when I look at them to start with. Inspiration-wise, they're probably going to follow a very similar path to before, which is as soon as one Stormcast dies, everyone else inspires. The Bird, I think, will just inspire the same way. I think the Stormcast Warriors will all have a rune mark on them to be like Storm Chosen or Sigmar's best buddy. And it'll be like, when a Sigmar's best buddy is killed, inspire all the other fighters or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and I think the Bird will inspire then too.
Yes, I think so.
They're not going to, because it used to inspire when, what's her name, inspired.
No. Yeah.
So I think it'll just be like, when you lose a Stormcast, everyone's inspired.
It'd also maybe be nice to see Taros get like a crit Grievous on inspiration or something, just to make it a little bit more vicious, because otherwise when it inspires it doesn't really gain very much. It's not particularly spectacular.
And I wonder whether when they inspire Luxor could go up to 3 swords. 2 swords on the melee attack seems a bit shit.
It's a bit rubbish, but I guess Luxor's main thing is the bow, and she does get cleave and ensnare on it when she inspires.
Okay,
so
maybe, yeah. I just find in this version, and I might be wrong, people can disagree with me, but I find in this version missile weapons just don't have the same punch, literally, as being hit in the face.
No, it's true. So being a flex warband, it's likely that their war scroll is going to be a fairly standard set of instructions and like one-use abilities throughout the game, and it wouldn't surprise me if we just saw versions of their fighter abilities, because all the fighters had a special ability when they died, where they could heal someone else or do various things, would just port across the war scroll. So maybe it's not on death, maybe it's just this fighter can do this thing.
Maybe go on guard on a feature token or something.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
But some combat-y ones, maybe a hold, take and hold type one, just to give a bit of flex. Yep.
Yeah, and the Bird had a reaction in the old version of the game where you could push the Bird up so it was near the bow person. Maybe that would be one of the abilities, a bit like the Venomites have, is they've just got once per game thing of you can move the Bird and you can do something with that. And then you've got the Warband generic ability that all Warbands get on their war scroll, which is like you can use this throughout the game at various points. For these guys, I'm wondering if they try and make the Bird a little bit more sort of centre star and can assist the other Stormcast fighters, even if it's not adjacent to the target, but near the target, perhaps to represent it flying around and pecking at people's eyes and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be quite nice. I'm wondering whether they wouldn't need the Grievous that you wanted to give it, because possibly. Like you use it to give you accuracy across the warband, and then your opponent has to choose whether they want to take it out for not much glory, or use up an activation doing that, or maybe even 2, because it's
2 dodge.
So 2 dodge, so that's not always that easy, but the extra accuracy could be good.
Well, so I'm thinking Stormcast warbands don't tend to get a lot of assists in because there's not so many of them. So if you could plonk a Bird right in the middle of the board somewhere and suddenly you're getting a lot of assists on those attacks, that could actually be quite useful instead of the old version. Yeah,
absolutely. And of course it could, help you with some take and hold type stuff, because it's got its 2 dodge. Stick it on an objective and put it on guard.
That Bird's not going nowhere.
Start to get tricky.
So the next warband up, and I think all of the rest of the Order warbands here we've got a lot to talk about, is Soulraid.
Soulraid, one of the most popular warbands for various reasons.
One of the most shenanigan-laden warbands as well. In the old rules, all of the fighters had different special rules and stuff like that. It was
the most text. I think if we did a text per centimetre of the cards for version 1, then Soulraid would win.
I think so.
To reflect that, they are mastery.
They are mastery, and I think they might be one of those warbands where we see that they're mastery, but they don't necessarily have like a one element thing on their war scroll, because they've got so many other options on there. And there are other warbands out there that are mastery that don't have just one thing, like the Discord, the Thrice-World Discord. They don't have one ability. They've got lots of things, but it ties into a theme, and I think that these guys will have something that ties into that theme. So the Inspire mechanic for these guys, I think we're going to see very similar to before, because we've got Kyreni's Razors. They're very similar to they were before. They inspire a certain number after certain turns, and then they all uninspire. These guys, in the old version, they all inspired round 2, and all uninspired round 3.
Really nice and thematic.
That might be a little bit extreme, but then they might be able to balance that up a bit with some abilities that maybe help re-inspire some people or something, perhaps. But
yeah, because I think there was a way of inspiring later in the game.
Yeah.
Because not being inspired in turn 3 is tough.
But stat-wise, they look pretty solid. They're pretty good like they were before. There's lots of stats all over the place. I think it'd be nice to see if Tamao could get grapple back on his harpoon like he used to have in the old version. It didn't have a name back then. And maybe a crit Grievous on the harpoon as well, so you've got some options there.
These were always pretty solid in combat, especially when inspired. It was like 3 hammers, 2 damage type attacks. I think their accuracy is going to depend a lot on what they do with Spine Fin.
Yes.
Which I guess will come to as a War Scroll ability, I think. Well, Spine Fin has an attack, because in the old game he couldn't attack.
Couldn't attack at all.
And he attack all upgrades on.
And he's got 2 dodges now, when before he only had 1 dodge, because generally he didn't want to go after Spine Fin because you didn't get any glory for him, and he's 0 glory again now. So
yeah, so I was thoroughly expecting to have 0 glory. So for this War Scroll, it's quite hard to predict what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of text on those cards to translate to War Scroll. Do you think they're going to make use of rune marks? Because I could see them saying, like, giving the crab one, and then saying if the one with the crab rune mark can push up towards an enemy fighter when you move, or something like that.
Yeah.
To tie in with how it used to be.
Yeah, a bit like the Git Scurry and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we're going to see things like that. I could see a good chunk of the War Scroll maybe getting dedicated to the fish, being able to move around. So maybe in again, it'll be a reaction of some kind or something where you can then place it other places.
I really hope they bring that back. It would definitely fit with the mastery. It gives extra accuracy.
Yep.
But you can play around it as well, because you have to telegraph.
You had to put the token first, didn't you?
To telegraph where the fish went. So I hope they bring that back.
Yeah.
Because it was a really nice touch. I was terrible at using it, but it was something you can practice and get better at.
It was very funky, and it enabled you to get those assists where you really need to, or lock down objectives sometimes and get in people's way.
Whether they could get it down to be concise enough and accessible enough for the new version.
I think they could when
like
you've got that much space on the War Scroll. I mean, the ability would just basically be something like a fighter with this rune mark can place a shoal token.
Yeah.
If a shoal token is already in play, instead place this model where that shoal token is and remove the token.
Yeah.
And it would just be something like that.
And I think he might lose his attack.
Yeah, I'd like to see that go if he can teleport around.
But I think he would be able to keep coming back.
Yeah.
Because obviously you could kill him, and then you could just bring him back.
Yeah, you would just place the shoal token again or something like that.
And maybe not a feature token. Because I feel like he would be quite strong if you could put him on a feature token. In the days of yore, he couldn't hold objectives.
Yeah.
But obviously he can now.
Yeah.
So, unless they put a text to say he can't, but they've kind of avoided doing that, so I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether they say he can't.
Yeah, so maybe no feature tokens.
He can't be placed on one, but then you could move him on one.
Yes, yeah, that could work quite nicely, I think, and that would still give a lot of flexibility and a bit more character back to the warband without them having to go too heavy-handed on it.
Yeah, because they've got to make him, because he's like, they've got the crab as well, but he is kind of like one of the most interesting models in the game, let alone the warband. So it would be really nice if he had something good to do. Of course, the other big thing they had was the resurrection.
Yeah, every time he killed somebody, if Tamao was out of action, you could bring him back.
Yeah.
That would be quite nice to get back again as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's starting to feel like it could get too complicated. I know it's a mastery warband.
Yeah.
But it would be quite good to have that, I think.
They kind of needed that one, I think, as well, because their fighters weren't the toughest around.
No,
so
they could hit quite hard, but especially because they weren't inspired for 2/3 of the game.
Yeah, and maybe that'll be the counter to it, is that, you only inspire for round 2, but you're going to be able to bring a guy back and you've got the movement shenanigans. So maybe that'll be it. You've also got they had the Flood Tide, which enabled fighters with move counters to charge, and maybe that'll come in, because there's only a couple of fighters could do that. So again, you could definitely have your rune marks to cover that ability off. And maybe it's just a one-use ability, pick a fighter with the rune mark who has a move counter and they can charge in the next activation or something.
Quite nice, yeah.
And this is just the fighter abilities we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, they really went all out with the Soulraid.
Really
they had
did.
a suite of quite interesting faction cards as well. You were talking about, when people were talking about the flavour of the game, really they're talking about Soulraid.
Like 90% of it, it felt like all the creativity went into that warband.
Yeah.
They had things like Brain Barnacles and Chill Mists and the Cloud of Midnight and Crushing Pressure, all really helped to really build on that theme of the sea and the depths of the sea
they had
and
the
stuff.
lure one as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were absolutely fantastic. They helped reduce movement or prevent you from being targeted by ranged attacks or increased your accuracy or gave you extra dice and re-rolls. I feel like whilst they would be great to see again, it would maybe be a bit of a cop-out, and I feel like they should concentrate on the fighter stuff more.
Yeah. Elephant in the room. Spine Fin's Toxin. Can you see that back as a one-shot ability?
Yeah, that could be just a little ping thing. I mean, lots of other warbands have that. Just a little one damage, someone adjacent attacks, something like that would be quite nice. Again,
with the placement of Spine Fin could could be good.
Yeah, but again, it could be quite easily counterable because, you're going to go there, I'm just going to go over here now instead.
Yes.
So, yeah, definitely one of those warbands I'm really keen to play, or at least see how they turn out when they come back in version 2 now.
Yeah, I think so. They were always one of the more interesting warbands, and like I said, they're mastery, so you've got some practicing to do. And I think there's pretty much nobody not looking forward to seeing them on the table.
So from soggy elves to shady elves.
Shady elves. Now, this is the warband I'm most excited to see across the whole 16. This is the one I'm most interested to see, partly because they got such a raw deal.
It really did.
Between when they were released and now.
Yeah, I mean, they came out and then not long after, they changed the rules around how objectives tokens got placed. So a lot of their abilities and their power cards and stuff suddenly were much less reliable and useful.
Yeah.
You played them a lot more in version 1 than I did.
barely played them.
And you barely played them, but they were your warband. But when I was looking through the version 1 cards on them, I was like, these cards are brilliant. I love this warband. Why did this not feature more heavily? And I mean, one of the models is a little bit dodgy, but all the other models look fantastic, and their cards were great. It's just they got screwed over by Games Workshop, so I'm hoping that they get beef up.
They were probably the nadir of the game when almost nobody could play.
Yeah.
And then they changed the rule. When people could finally play, they changed the rules so that they were much worse than they should have been.
Yep.
And then they didn't get brought back in the initial release of Emberwatch. So they've kind of really, really suffered. So hopefully in Spitewood, they will be the bee's knees.
I mean, they are aggro, but here's hoping that their stats get looked at, because currently all the boss starts on 2 dodge, but all the other fighters are just 1 dodge, even inspired, and it feels like an aggro warband. They're going to crumble if they stay like that.
Yeah, unless they've got some shadowy re-rolls or double assist type things, because obviously with 2 dodge that could get hard to kill, could be oppressive.
Yeah.
But 1 dodge is, if anybody's played Knives of the Crone and can't inspire them, 1 dodge is horrible.
Disappear quickly.
Horrible. I really like that I completely forgot this, that the boss starts with cleave or ensnare rune marks.
On a range 2/2 hammer 2 damage attack.
It's really nice, and that's pretty aggro.
Yeah, that is pretty aggro.
Yeah.
And I think other than the dodge, most of the fighters, the stats across them all, looking at them, it's like they look okay.
Solid,
they look good.
They're solid.
So I think I'm quite happy with, if they remained exactly the same as they do now, I'd be quite happy with that.
Maybe one or 2 extra go to 2 dodge.
Yeah, I'd like to see them all go to 2 dodge, to be honest.
Yeah, I think all of them might make them a bit strong with their stat line, but we'll see.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Interesting, Valissa had a combo attack in the old version, and now doesn't, but does have 2 attack profiles on the card. And it'll be interesting to see if they bring something like that back with a rune mark, maybe, because there are several warbands in this new 16 that all had some kind of combo attack
Rippers
ability.
Has been the most famous. We'll talk about that in our destruction video. But
and Soulraid did as well. They had a combo attack. So it would be interesting to see how they do that. Maybe they'll create a new rune mark, and they won't call it combo, but maybe they'll call it something else. And
follow up or something.
And so instead of using your Grievous or your Cleave, you use that instead. And if that attack's successful, you can then make an attack with another weapon with the relevant rune mark on it or something like that. Maybe. Their old inspiration was to attack a fighter that already had wound tokens on it, and that feels like a fairly straightforward thing to carry across.
Pretty sure they'll keep that. It's not always that easy to do.
It's not always that easy, but once you do get a wounded fighter, everyone can dogpile that fighter, and especially with some of the ranged attacks.
Yeah, if they've got some shadow shenanigans.
Who knows, maybe they'll have a special shadow attack ability or something that they have to use.
Bit of ping damage in the deck, wound a fighter, shoot them up.
And maybe they've not given them 2 dodge because their inspiration might be really easy. If it's just attack a wounded fighter, that's not too hard, especially with some of the decks that can ping off a lot of ping damage. Looking at the War Scroll, trying to think of what their warband specific ability might be, I'm wondering if it might be something to do around with not getting stagger tokens when they flip tiles or something like that, so that they can get the benefit of getting the surrounded on their defence without the downside of being staggered.
Or, how about this? I've literally just made this up off the top of my head. How about you get to turn up 2 or 3 or any in your territory up the other way before the game starts?
That'd be quite cool, yeah. Or maybe...
Or 1 in each territory, but not neutral territory. So 1 in friendly territory, 1 in enemy territory. Or something like that. I don't know.
Something like that would be quite cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll be something around the fact that when they're in edge hexes or on feature hexes, they get some kind of special bonus to their saves, like maybe they can count single assists or something.
Yeah, because it used to be double assist, didn't it?
It is double assist when you're on the feature tokens, so this is the thing I found when I spent a lot of time thinking about some of these warbands. Like, I can't think of what their warband generic ability might be, and that's where my brain started to explode with options of maybe it'll be this, maybe it'll be that, or maybe it'll just be...
You could see our script here, you'd see how many ideas he had.
Loads of them. For the abilities, because they're an aggro warband, I figure that their war scroll abilities are all going to be fairly standard, get in and smash stuff.
Yep.
But with the added tinge of shadowiness to it that they had in all their power cards.
Leaping out the shadows, kind of.
Yeah, all that
shadow
kind
ambush.
of stuff. Shadow ambush, that is written down here. That is well done.
Don't give away our secrets.
Yes, they might regain that as that could be their war scroll general ability, or maybe it'll be a one use per round thing. It could be very powerful to enable them to. It used to be that when they charge, they could make that charge from like an edge hex or a feature token. That would be quite nasty.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the idea of it. Quite cool.
And the Stormcast warband, I can't remember what they're called, the ones that came in the Embergar box, they've got an ability which is just teleport someone on the other side of the board, so it's not outside the realms of that at all.
No. Impenetrable darkness, so maybe we're going to have some shadow counters, you think?
Maybe. I mean, there are other warbands out there that have counters and stuff, so maybe they get something like that where if they gain a counter, then they can treat all hexes as cover hexes or something like that. One dodge wouldn't be quite so bad then.
No, maybe that would mitigate it. I'd kind of forgotten that aspect of it, actually. So, yes, if they can have shadow token, maybe they will start with shadow tokens. They all have single assists or double assists or whatever. Double assists, I guess.
And maybe you use the shadow token to charge from... edge hex or a feature token, and you expel your shadow token at that point.
Yeah, quite cool.
Gino, I hope you're taking that. This is gold.
I'm assuming it's all boxed up and ready to go.
Yeah. Someone's going to have to open a lot of boxes and rewrite a lot of cards, just saying. They also had a lot of great, and I found this when I was looking through their power deck. I was just like, these are fantastic cards. They had so many really good cards in there. Things like Rippling Darkness, which was just a nice little ping damage for when people were near feature tokens or edge hexes and stuff like that.
You're slightly giving lie to your theory that there are lots of boring cards, because these have got really good cards, and the Soulraid have really good cards. Yeah. And I'm going to talk again in our Destruction Warband. Rippers had lots of really good cards.
Yeah. But the Stormcast Warband we talked about, they didn't have very good cards, so they weren't great at all. So there were definitely peaks and troughs in all of this.
This is a peak.
We're definitely at peak here, which is something I wasn't really expecting from the Order warbands. They were the ones I were initially least looking forward to, but I think they're probably creeping up the top for me as well.
Soulraid and these guys, Shadeborn, are two of the more interesting warbands across the board. They had Shadow Binding for some healing.
Yeah, it's always nice to get a heal, and again, as we mentioned at the start, we found that a lot of warbands, they got that heal. He's like, I'm going to take this because it's a heal. Lots of warbands had it. It was called different things, but everyone
healing
had the same
now
thing.
Is more useful as well.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot more healing goes on. So I don't know how it works. They can't have all of these things. But again, maybe it could be like they have the shadow tokens, and then maybe you could use a shadow token to charge something, or a shadow token.
You could have
heal
4 abilities, and you use your shadow token to do one of those things.
A bit like my Armies.
Yeah, that'd be quite cool, actually. I didn't think about that. That's really nice.
Yep.
They also had Smoke and Mirrors, which was for quite some funky, quick positioning. You could have, move somebody somewhere else or just swap them with somebody else.
Once per game, swap 2 people with shadow tokens.
Yeah, could be.
Shadow tokens.
Writes itself. It writes itself. This is where we're going to get none of that. And everyone's going to be going, why did we get all that stuff? That sounded so much nicer. Probably because it's massively overpowered.
Yeah, that's the problem with predicting.
Yeah. They also had a lot of upgrades that could become abilities, like the Dusk Lure Braces, which did damage to an enemy when they were in a cover hex.
Okay, a bit of anti-P&P.
Exactly. Or the Abyssal Guidance to get a reroll when attacking from the cover hex. So it could just be, when you make an attack.
P&P.
If you're on the edge hexes or in a cover hex or feature token, that you get X rerolls or something like that from it. But again, there were just so many cards in there that really fed into that theme of being in the shadows and stuff. It was a real shame that they lost all of that so soon after they came out.
So you've got to feel, I've said P&P twice, I'm going to say it a third time, you've got to feel that this warband is aggro, but it's going to play well with Pillage and Plunder.
Yeah.
Because the cover hexes have surely got to be...
It's got to have something to do with it. It's got to have something to do with it, unless they've just not tried at all. I mean, we've sat here for 10 minutes and come up with all these ideas.
But they're literally the only things that have kind of shadow
Exactly.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
game
yeah,
at
yeah.
the moment. So unless you give them shadow tokens, just enable them to do stuff with.
I mean, both work.
It's
Give them both. Give it all.
it's the only way it can be done. So I feel like it's got to be done that way.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to. That's 2 elf warbands that I'm looking forward to seeing how they turn out, and I've not been interested in any of the other elf warbands before. So there we go.
So another warband I played quite a lot is the final warband in the box.
Final warband.
Well, final out of first final.
Yeah.
We've got 3 final ones.
The first final warband. And it
the
is-
Stalkers, the Starblood Stalkers, which I'm pleased to say are hold warband.
They are hold. They're going to hold on
It's
tight.
interesting because they could have been flex with.
They could have been.
Tixie Kaka and in particularly Clacktrock can pack a punch.
They could pack a punch.
Yeah.
I guess because their inspiration mechanic was hold 3
Yeah.
objectives after your opponent's activation, it kind of figures that that's going to be a similar thing
I
this
think
time.
that's going to be the same.
I wonder if it'll be slightly because, like with Supremacy, it's number of fighters with
Maybe I don't think it will be. Depending on what push tech they have, but I think it'll be hold 3.
It could just be hold
But I
3.
think it will be all of them. Whereas in the old version, you had to do something different with Clacktrock.
Yes.
You had to have a system attack. And I think there's going to be some shenanigans.
Now that might be a bit harder for them to achieve in this version because in the older version of the game, people didn't care so much about treasure
No,
tokens.
that is true.
This version, most people care about treasure tokens in some way or
That's
another
true.
at some of the time and are much more aware of them, so maybe that's going to make their life a bit harder. But
Yeah,
it is
I
also...
kind of feel like, that, no offence designers, but I kind of feel like they won't have thought about that.
Probably not. Probably not. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't know if you're watching. Sorry if you did. Yeah, and maybe they're going to ask us because that's not their Inspire condition, you twats. So you never know. But yeah, it feels like maybe that'll be a bit tougher. Again, depending on their push shenanigans. They did have Burst from the Shadows, which were jumping ahead a little bit into the war scroll. But
Sorry.
I feel like if you've got Burst from the Shadows to push 2 fighters,
I won't do it again.
you're nearly always going to use that to jump onto 2 objectives straight away.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, well, it's one of those things you'd always mulligan for it.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's kind of like, well, I don't need to mulligan for it because
I've got it,
and I
yeah.
can use it straight away, especially like you say, people get on objectives really fast.
Yeah.
So you're literally going to use it at the earliest available opportunity.
Now, as it would probably be after your opponent's activation still, they've still got a chance to get some of your fighters off, but there's all the other shenanigans around to keep people on them, so probably going to be that still.
Yeah, I would think so.
Clacktrock's bite, again, he had his make an attack, then you can make a bite with like the combo-y thing. Will we see a similar kind of rune mark come in to give him that back again?
Hasn't got one on his war scroll
He
card at the
doesn't, he
moment, so it would
doesn't, innit?
absolutely have to be changed.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing saying they won't change the fighter cards when they bring out the new ones.
No.
He does start on like 3 damage, so he's pretty freaking terrifying.
Yeah, there was a vague charge you could kill a 4-wheel fighter.
Yeah.
Early doors, unless the vampires killed them first round.
Yeah, that friggin' dinosaur ate like all of my vampires in one
Yeah.
game once.
Yeah, and then the next game you killed him.
Killed straight away. He's dying straight away. Yeah.
He is great, Clacktrock, and I hope he, I don't want him to be overpowered, but I hope he rivals maybe the Jaws of Itzel a little bit.
Well, it's going to be interesting because you've got all those other fighters. He can't be the same glory as the Jaws of Itzel guys.
No, and he can't be as good because you've got 5 other fighters.
Yeah,
that do
exactly,
stuff.
exactly. So he can't be as good,
No.
but also he is a lizard man, so it kind of makes sense that he's like, well, he's a lizard man, so sure he's got to be sort of as kind of as good. But
Yeah.
I mean, 3 damage is still pretty nice,
3 damage
and
is nice.
2 shields when he's inspired. So I reckon we'll see
Very
that.
solid. We've talked about the fact that I don't think he'll inspire differently.
No.
So, should we move on to Pattle?
Yeah, so I think looking at the rest of the warband, I think their stats and their weapons and everything look okay. I've not looked at anything in there and thought, oh, that looks terrible.
No.
The ones with shields keep shields. The ones that don't get 2 dodge when they inspire. All the kind of thing you'd expect to see. So that all looks alright. But Otterpattle, that interesting, intriguing model in the warband that he always had little special things before. I think there was a power card where you could literally take him off the board, and at the very end of the round you could just put him back somewhere.
I reckon that ought to be an ability.
Could be a war scroll
I
ability.
reckon that would be an ability.
We'll come on to war scrolls in a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, Otterpattle, will he get his crit attack back?
Maybe, but it wasn't actually very good after the rule change because giving somebody a move token was nowhere near as brutal.
No, it did stop from charging,
Yeah, it
but
did,
they
yeah.
could still run up to you and punch you in the face
so
instead.
it was still good, but I suppose it's still quite good in games of where you've got gather momentum.
Yeah.
It's like, haha, in your face, you move now.
Yeah.
So-
and you've got some warbands, like you've got a Mollog there. If he can get a shifty shot off to start with and give Mollog a move token, it's like, you're not getting a charge now, mate.
That's
You're
true.
going to have to move and then swat people.
Go around and mop up the other guys while Mollog's a bit hampered. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a fair point, that's a fair
So
point.
it's not terrible
No,
to bring something
no.
like that back. And it's not like they couldn't change the stat on the weapon to just be crits for hits. It makes no difference fundamentally to the mechanics of the game to say hits on crits.
Hits on crits. So again, that would require a change.
Yeah.
I quite like it. I hope they keep it. Although it used to be crits, but you had cleave and ensnare, so it might be it isn't as good.
No, so maybe they need to do something to make it a bit more accurate. So take away the only on crits thing,
And make it swords.
make it swords,
And then
or
choose.
yeah,
That's probably about as accurate then.
yeah, and
I
possibly
haven't done the math.
possibly the give the fighter a move token thing could be like a war scroll ability.
Yeah, maybe yeah.
A one use time, or
One
maybe
use.
even a charge counter,
Yeah.
but one use ability.
Yeah.
You know, use this after a successful attack.
Give him a charge.
Yeah.
Give him a move token. Yeah,
Wouldn't be too,
interesting.
wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
Talking of war scroll abilities, we've kind of drifted in that direction now, and there is obviously Skittish, was a hallmark ability of the warband.
That even more so than Burst of the Shadows has got to be on the war score, I
I
think.
mean, it was one of their things, wasn't it? As much as we forgot to use it, it was definitely one of their key things, was being able to push your little fighters away a bit. And,
Yeah,
that
you can
kind
help
of-
you set up for getting on objectives as well.
Exactly.
Potentially. So yeah, I think that's got to be on there.
that might be their generic war scroll ability.
Yeah.
That, and again, you'd give them a rune mark to say little lizardy thing, and you know,
they're probably going to be minions, aren't they? And,
yeah, probably, something like that, because minions don't actually make a difference
No.
game wise, other
so-
than they've got this ability.
So
So
push your minions.
yeah.
One step away. Or
Any
whatever.
minions within so many hexes of an activated
Yeah.
fighter, you can
Yeah.
push them one hex away or something like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I think that would be quite good to have. I then was looking through their power cards to see what kind of really tasty cards they had in there, and again, they had quite a few because they were one of those warbands I think GW spent some time on. There was some there like Lord of Space and Time, which enabled you to move
My
a fighter.
favourite card.
Enabled you to move a fighter to an unoccupied. I think it was an unoccupied feature token or treasure token
it was
before.
really good. That and the wanky device.
The wanky device, yes. I feel like the Lord of Space and Time, again, it fits their theme of the lizard men, and that might not be a bad thing.
No,
I think that would
feel
work
like
quite
that would be
nicely.
in there. And the asterisms maybe, but then you start to get too many.
Yeah, I feel like if you go the asterisms route, you have to make it all about the asterisms. It's all about the asterisms, baby.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, use this, and on this turn, all your fighters get blah, whatever
Yeah.
it is, +1 move or +1 dice or +1 save.
Yeah.
But that feels like it'd be quite dull.
Unless they make the whole war scroll asterisms, but change what they do. So you have 3 asterisms, and then you can use 1 each turn.
Yeah.
Some of the other war scrolls have that ability, don't they?
Yeah, they do, yeah. I think the Authorized Guardians or
maybe
others
Grimwatch
have.
a little bit is
yeah,
similar.
Grimwatch is similar.
So you basically you use that one this turn, and on this turn I'm going to transport somebody onto.
Yeah.
I can transport somebody to an objective at some point.
Yeah, or maybe that's where you get your burst out of the shadows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would work quite nicely.
That would,
Then
yeah.
maybe a +1 dice because they can be a bit aggro. Or maybe push 1 hex towards objectives to help you get onto the objectives. So yeah, there's definitely possibilities there. But like you say, the actual asterisms themselves, though quite good, were a bit boring.
Yeah, they were just very basic stuff. And I think that's why they were good. They were basic. They did things without any kind of drawback.
Yeah.
But they were quite basic, and that would lack a little bit of taste. I definitely would like to see them utilising Otterpattle a bit more, making him a little bit more of a wild card with his ability at least. And maybe that could be one of the asterisms.
Yeah,
is,
like take him off the board.
yeah,
bring him back again.
or make his attack, give someone a charge counter or something like that. Anything like that really could be quite good. Otherwise, they could start to feel a bit vanilla, and maybe they'll be quite powerful anyway, and they don't need too much. But
No, it's interesting because you're going to be stacking them up against the Grimwatch and the Gits,
yeah,
who are 2 of the most powerful and kind of consistent warbands
Yeah.
existing in the game at the moment. So you don't want them to be better than those warbands.
no.
But if they're much worse, then nobody's going to play them.
No,
So it's interesting.
And I think that is the problem with the current setup, is that you know that these 2 decks go well together, and you want to play with a movementy shenanigans horde warband. It's like, which one's the best? If it's not this one, you're not going to pick it. I do like the fact that in the community in general, though, people
will
aren't.
try.
People
will
aren't.
try,
Yeah, people are always going for other things rather than just always going for the best, which is a nice thing.
So I think that's everything for the Stalkers.
I think so. Yeah. again, another warband for Order that I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, so out of this order that you don't really like, you're looking at for 3/4 of them.
What can I say? They've picked three and I can see why they didn't pick them for the initial launch, because they all got a lot of fluff to go on in them.
Yeah.
But I think they could all be really characterful and tasty in their own right.
They are some of them more characterful. I think quite often in this game, the ones with the more figures are more characterful. I suppose it kind of makes sense. They've got more options to be characterful.
So that is our initial thoughts for what might the Order box look like.
Absolutely. So these are going to be short videos where we just quickly go over what. So you may have found that we don't really know what we're talking about, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, please consider clicking that like button.
And clicking that subscribe button.
And do consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can help us shape the content that we make. And some of the ideas for this video also came from people we asked on Patreon in our Discord.
Yes, thank you to all of our patrons, because a lot of them did get involved in a lot of these and help with the brainstorming as well. So thank you to all of you for your input. And don't forget to leave a comment below on what you think these warbands might look like when they come out in the Spitewood.
Absolutely, and any ideas or things that we've had that are totally terrible, do let us know in the comments below.
So we'll see you soon, probably in Spitewood.